Welcome to the One Within All to another episode of InnerVerse podcast. I'm your host, Chance, and we got a real bag of zingers for you today. Been so excited, electrically charged to get into a conversation with this guy right here, Gabriel, aka Slick Dissident on YouTube. His channel is rather new to the scene, but if you want my take on it, this is some of the most relevant information that you could be diving into right now if you're interested in mapping the capital T truth to the capital R reality of your everyday lived experience, using the decoder ring Gabriel provides through knowledge of the tarot to unlock the secrets and mysteries of all the hexes, spells, and even blessings available in the realm coming through these glow boxes that we're all currently using in this ramping up Uranian age. I've got to say, if you want a point of why Gabriel is probably on point, I can't even get the bell to let me get notifications on his YouTube channel. Homie's got a small channel right now and it doesn't work. I hit the bell and instead of getting the option for like all or personalized or some notifications, it takes me to my settings screen on my phone in settings that are completely irrelevant to YouTube. It's like, I cannot make it work. So YouTube is messing with you. YouTube messes with me, and that's fine. But good way to guess that there's some gravy in the mix. So I'm just going to get us started with talking to Gabriel. We have so many possible tangents and topics and webs to weave. I'll point out that Gabe's also been popping in on Weaving Spiders Welcome, a show you've maybe heard me talk about a lot. I also enjoy occasionally co-hosting there whenever I've got the time. The minds converging there are just phenomenal. Previous guest Alan Marcus is part of that crew as well, but there's a lot of them. We hang out on Telegram. We're constantly keeping the information channels connected and making the connections. And yeah, so times are good right now. It's all expanding. We're having fun and we are growing into knowledge of self, both the personal self and the greater self of the entire cosmos. Life is awesome. I'm so excited to talk to Gabe, aka Slick Dissident. So let's get into it. What's up, man? Welcome. How you doing today? And thanks for being here.
Oh, wonderful, Chance. Thank you so much for inviting me, man. This is great. It's like finding a family I never knew I had, and I've been looking for a long time. So thanks for inviting me into the circle.
That's how I feel too, man. All these amazing other creators out there that are part of a growing, almost like organic network or spider web work.
Yep.
There's a lot of us. There's Lindsay, the Rogue Ways. There's Weaving Spiders. There's you. There's me. There's more than that. But Alan, our mutual friend from the Spiders, he suggested I kick off this conversation with a question about how you became dissident and what you're dissenting against, who or what or why.
Nice. Great question. So essentially, that term for me comes from, I believe it was Bush Sr.'s speech when he mentioned 1,000 points of light and, was making a statement of absolutes that you're either with us or you're against us, and when he drew that line in the sand, it was as though the decision was made for me. And I am an advocate of, natural law, or what he would call the law of the jungle. And, a lot of my mentality is, raging against the machine, so to say, but, Darwinism and, that divine right to rule, that is the jurisdiction that he was claiming would inevitably win against the law of the jungle. And, so that name, Slick Dissident, was essentially derived from that, that we've been carved out of society and it's time to build a place for ourselves in that dominion. And there's a lot of value in being cast out. they get the city, and they get the material, and we get the spiritual. So, you know, when he did that, he did us a favor, and we have so much growth and so little limitation to what we can do in that natural law, in that, you know, that fundamental truth that they are trying to cast an overlay and, you know, the world of illusion on top of that. So that's kind of where that name came from. And, you know, I was spent quite a bit of time just in the background absorbing, being a listener, being an observer. And I barely ever would, you know, put comments in the chats, you know, but recently I noticed that, you know, the fight took on a new dimension and new level of severity. And, you know, it was time to get in and start building the resistance, if you will. And so, yeah, that's when I started my channel. I knew that I had some things that I wanted to put into the consciousness that seemed very valuable. And I felt like the stage was set, and it was time for my cue to jump in and start ranting and see if anybody takes to it. So that's kind of what got me into this place. And I'm so glad the message has been received, heard, appreciated, and valued.
Well, you can tell the difference between people that start a channel because they just want to be seen versus the people that are like, all right, this stuff in my head needs to get out there. And so I was kind of more on I just wanted to have fun and make a show. I mean, I knew it was for growing sake, but like me having something to say personally, it took a while to get there, where it's my own original thoughts are coming through and I'm connecting dots for myself. But with you, it's like right out the gate, you're referencing other people's work. You're building on other people's work. We all do that, but you've got some amazing originality to it. And there's a lot to address about what you just said. For sure, as of the last couple of years, 2020, the die has been cast. And there might be a lot of death in this particular hex. Like, that's also radically transformative. That's that Plutonic number 13. But the city, right? That's the false city, the powers that are being harvested out of us through these technological inverted circuit board design of, you know, Masonic grid work that we call, when I say Masonic, free Masonic, I think a lot of that grid work was just bolted on top of, that was a more native thing that actually had a positive spin to the charge. And it's been switch to an energetic harvesting instead of an energetic harmonizing type of system. I don't think that we have to avoid the concept of congregating in a city. I think that it's a different type of city that we should be pursuing. Our spiritual power, the amazing potential and our uniqueness that we can grasp once we have reconnected that divine spark and gone native. And what they do is they try to cast us as the alter natives, but what we really are is the natives. And we've talked about that. And I know you loved that little word twist. So I thought I'd bring it up again. Mm-hmm. So anyway, where to go from there? Question wise,
I want to put something on, build on what you just put out. The word city in Hebrew is teli. And so we have the television, the telephone, but what you and I are doing is we're blazing telepathy. We're creating a path through the city, making our own way. We're blazing our own path through this city that they're building up around us.
Dude, my actual real life telepathy lately is off the charts. I mean, we talked a little bit before we got on the air. Some of it's pertaining to sound healing stuff. And just speaking of charts, one thing that helped me gain some trust about it was that looking at my chart with somebody, they're pointing out an aspect of Neptune in my config that basically causes my knowing aspect of just inherent knowing of things to be clouded from me in the sense that I don't know why I know things, but I can trust that when I think I know it, that I do know it. And I've been rolling with that. And it's really awesome because if you know that you're trustworthy, you're in alignment with natural law, the law of nature to the best of your ability, you want to be good. You are expressing goodness at all, everywhere you can and feeling good, coherent in your electrical field, then whatever it is that you pop in your mind and think, no reason not to trust that because you're trustworthy. And even if it's a little off, it still might lead you somewhere cool. So anyway, you've got a lot of knowing. One of the things that is so helpful about your channel, I haven't managed to get through every video, but dang, I've been trying and I've definitely caught the recent ones. But let's talk about your YouTube project, some of the origin stories here, because specifically the Tarot Avengers, the origin stories of these modern day gods wearing spandex, how you've mapped the 22 Marvel movies to the major arcana. And there's a lot of tarot work in your work that's very helpful. Tarot's the truth, right? But give us some background on that project and on why it is so crucial to put things through the lens of the greatest story ever told in this set of cards. Nice.
Yes. So that was what got me off my seat and put me into action. I'm a little ashamed that the thought ever occurred to me that, somebody else will find this. Somebody else will do the work. I really had those thoughts, and I spent a little time harboring this hope that somebody else would make the connection. But once I started to, give life to the idea, it built itself, and it became, a live action learning experience. A lot of, my videos, I'll make a mistake, and the next video you'll see me come in and say, nah, maybe rearrange, put an addendum on what I thought I knew before. And so, the other thing is, technology is not my forte. And so, I'm facing a lot of my own weaknesses and, conquering a lot of my own demons live in front of everybody. So the Tarot of the Avengers has been essentially a documentation of my learning process of coming to a deeper understanding of what the tarot means. And it was just amazing that, my mother had dug up an old tarot deck right around the time that I was thinking I should get off my ass and start doing my own, research on this, what this tarot means. And so I was watching some other channels that were very tarot oriented, and I'll kind of put this into my bio. I come from a line of some clairvoyance. My family is very matriarchal. There are, my grandfather was the last patriarch, and he passed away some 30 years ago, maybe a little more. And so my family was very matriarchal for most of my life. And I have an aunt who's a very accomplished witch. And she answered her calling when I was young, when I was maybe 10. And by the time I was 15 or 16, she had a bookshop of a magical bookshop of, alternative healing, alternative spirituality. And she opened it right in the middle of downtown in conservative Indiana. And it was a very bold move for in that time, in that place. And she let me come to work for her for a very a brief period of time. And in that time, I was literally, I was ripe for the intake of all that information. And I started learning about crystals and yeah, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, powerful,
It's funny because I just literally 5 seconds before you said crystals, and continue, but you were about to say crystals. I grabbed this badass smoky quartz I've got, and then like 3 seconds later, you're like crystals, and I was like, yep.
Yeah. And it's amazing, and picking up books on spells and, learning about, like, I learned a spell when I was, I guess 14 or so. I learned about this spell where you would put a broom under your floorboards in old colonial times, and you would cast a spell such that if an unwelcome intruder came into the house, they would be overwhelmed with the compulsion to dance, and then they would dance themselves to exhaustion. And I just thought that was such a fascinating concept, such a fascinating idea. And as I went through my life, just with that little story in the back of my head, it started to substantiate itself in amazing ways, and I've learned, have you heard of the dancing plague?
Oh, yeah. I bring that up all the time. It's so far out.
Yes. And that there is,
maybe like give people who haven't heard of it the context of that as we continue forward.
Yeah. So apparently, I'm not 100% on the location. I think it was in colonial America. Or was
I thought it was a European thing. You continue describing what it is, and I'll pop in after I search that on the wikis, the official story of history.
Yeah. So apparently a girl begins dancing compulsively, and she cannot stop. She is wandering through the village, and she is dancing uncontrollably with no music. And slowly but surely, the crowd begins to, observe her, and it's almost like the spirit starts to spread into the onlookers. And the next thing you know, there's 10 people dancing with her. And then the word spreads. People go and tell their families, "Hey, there's a dance. This is like the original, flash mob, And so then people tell the people, and people come to watch. And then the watchers, some of them are inspired, and they start moving, and it just catches on. And ultimately, it goes on for days, and people dance themselves to exhaustion. Some people are collapsing. And
it said that it was in 1518, and it was actually like from July to September in France, actually. Strasbourg, France, I think.
Wow.
So a lot of dancing.
That is a lot of dancing. And yeah, they talk about, people collapsing, some people dying, and then there's accounts of people like stomping their feet really hard, as though their feet are in some sort of pain or itching, or and they would even lay on their back and ask other people to like scratch or itch their feet for them. And it's just a fascinating story, and it gives a kind of a glimpse into the primitive, I guess. I don't really like that word, but we got to use it. But it's the primitive impact of dance magic, the magic of movement.
That word just recalls Darwinian theory. You're primative. Yeah. Okay. You silly monkeys. Right. You can go ahead and be a monkey's nephew or whatever. I'm good.
Yeah. It's so funny how many words that, you have to use because you don't have anything else, but we'll work, I'll try to find a good replacement for that one. But
I feel like there's so much power in neologism. It's just the memory to keep it fresh in mind. It'd be like, and also you have to repeat yourself whenever someone's like, "What do you mean by a strong beginning?" I'm like, I mean Saturday and Sunday instead of a weekend. Nice, how about a strong beginning?
Nice. Yes. Neologism. I like that.
That's when you create a word that hasn't been used elsewhere. It's a great word. Neologism.
That's awesome. You're such a good resource for these.
I tried. I mean, words are my favorite.
That's great. So maybe, instead of primitive, we should just say ancestral.
That works. Yeah.
Distant ancestral.
Even primal instead of primitive. I'm cool.
There we go.
There's a lot of alternative words that we don't have to fall into the ones that are clearly hexy, right?
Yeah.
But, feel free to circle to this if you had more to go through in where we were already. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I want to.
I do have a little more.
Okay, I've got my notes ready, so no worries. Go for it.
Okay. So yeah, just the idea that, dance is can be compulsive, can be contagious. And it's just beautiful to me looking back on all those years of just holding on to a spell and seeing how true it has been in history and how true it has become in my own life. Ultimately, many years later, I was a martial artist as a child, and so I still consider myself a martial artist, but I have gone through many styles and many lineages of various cultural martial arts, but the one that I've landed on and I'm here to stay is Capoeira. And Capoeira is considered ritualistic Afro-Brazilian dance fighting. And it is essentially the roots of breakdance.
I've never heard of that before.
It's phenomenal.
Okay.
It's really phenomenal. So, and this kind of builds into my bio a little bit. So when I was 12, I was into Taekwondo. And
hey, me too, at the age of 12.
Yeah,
I only made it to red belt. Got pretty far.
All right, same. Yeah.
Hey, nice. Sync. Whoa.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity to go to the YMCA with my instructor, with my teacher, who was just a brick house of a macho man with such a soft soul. He was such a healer. And, he was a bodybuilder, but he was like the quintessential spiritual warrior, and his name, Master Myers was his name. And he was teaching at the YMCA for women and children, particularly. And it was just beginners courses for people who had memberships at the Y. And he invited me to come and be his assistant instructor. And after a couple of years of doing that, I received the badge of of the instructor. And it was a very big badge. It was like big. It was one of the biggest ones you could get.
It was pretty badge-ass.
It was badge-ass. Yeah, buddy. Yeah. And that was my, my earliest form of building my self-esteem, And I just took that and I ran with it, whatever other degrees or accomplishments in life I've had, that's the one that I still to this day that I value the most. So I then, after college, I went off to Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana on the 40th parallel.
Ball State.
Ball State. You got it, man. Ball jars. So after college, I was leaning back into my martial arts abilities, playing to my strengths, so to say. And I was really getting into Japanese, Aikido, Kendo, swordsmanship, and, the philosophy of the warrior, the 5 rings and things like that. And I read that any true warrior would be completely irresponsible to focus all of their energy on doing damage or destruction or harm, and that it is required to take on the responsibility of healing. If you're going to know how to do harm, you must know how to do remedy. And that's when I realized how imbalanced my mentality was.
I like Tolkien because it's not in the movies at all, but there's this entire thread about Aragorn regarding the hands of the king are the hands of the healer. And it's so important because the king defends the realm, must be able to do violence in the appropriate sense, but also bring balance and heal the people spiritually, physically. And Aragorn actually knows the ancient ways of certain plants to bring healing that become, they foreshadow it in the Fellowship of the Ring with this plant Kingsfoil that helps Frodo survive the wounding from the king of the Nazgul, who is the king who doesn't have any healing, just vicious violence, And then later in the book, when that Nazgul king is defeated by Éowyn and Meriadoc, they are both put into a near death state from just the energy exchange of fighting and defeating that monster. And that Kingsfoil leaf, Aragorn goes and retrieves it to save them from the brink of death, while the common folk treated that as a weed, much like you might go find some dandelions in your yard and use it to deal with all kinds of stuff, even though common consensus is like, that's nothing. So anyway, I'm inspired by this whole idea that the one who can fight must also be able to fix.
Totally. Yeah, man. Yeah, it is just, that beautiful yin yang when you find this void that you didn't know was there. And now you must go and fulfill it to find balance, to make things right, even in your own way of thinking. Yeah. So in that, I'll circle back to that too, because I went on to massage therapy, into massage school. And on the very first day, kind of an interesting alchemical wedding here, I was sitting in the front of the class, and I wanted to be the alpha, the leader, and we had to go around the class and introduce ourselves. So I was the first one. I'm the Leo, of course I'm going to be let me take the mic. And so I get on there and I tell everybody how noble I am now, because I want to learn how to heal. And I know all the martial arts. What's that?
You got no bull, Yep. And so I kind of big up myself in front of the class. And then in the very back of the class, the last person to speak was this beautiful, beautiful goddess. Oh, I'll say her name, Anna Peterson. And she was on a whole nother level of humanity. She was so advanced in so many ways, but she's in the back of the class, letting everybody else go first. And her introduction was, she said that she was a accomplished dancer, that she had been at Ball State and, earned her degree in dance. And she said a phrase I'll never forget. She says, "I am a body junkie." And that just rang, that struck me. Maybe I'm a body junkie. I want to be a body junkie. If I'm not, teach me what that means, Worshiping in the temple.
Yeah. And so after class, she pulled me aside and she says, "So you say you're into martial arts?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did this, I did that. I've done this, I've broken boards, and and I know how swords work." And and she says, "Have you ever heard of Capoeira?" And then there's that void again. I'm like, "No." What? How? Say it again. And what? And she says, "Capoeira, Afro-Brazilian dance fighting." And she does this little jig. And I see in her body, I'm like, wow, she can, just that little jig she did when she said the word, I'm like totally charmed. And she says, "Well, I teach classes, once a week. You're welcome to come down. We'd love to have you. I think you would like it." And boy, was she right. So I went to the first class, and, the mechanics of Capoeira do not make sense in the beginning to any martial artist, maybe to a yogi. They might make a little sense to the yogi because you get down on the ground, you embrace the earth in ways that at first you just, it's a whole new language. And it's in Portuguese. The movements are Portuguese words. And I just, after maybe an hour and a half of the first class, all I have learned in my first class is how to get out of the way. And that is rule number 1 of Aikido. Rule number 1 is get out of the way.
Any real path of true mature warriorship is about, first and foremost, avoiding conflict. As soon as you're in a fight, you've already broken laws 1 through 5 or whatever.
Yes, sir.
You're losing. Even if you win that fight, you lose just by being in a fight.
That's exactly right, Chance. We are of one mind, you and I, man. Yep. So I learned how to get out of the way for an hour and a half. And at the end of the class, we begin what's called the roda. It's the circle where the game is played. And we stand in the circle, and in a larger class, if you have enough advanced students, you can facilitate live music, and you will actually play the instruments. And there are there's the tambourine, and there's the Congo drum. They're called something different in Portuguese, but we know them as the tambourine and the Congo drum, the scrapey stick and the cowbell, those are fundamentals. But then there's this one instrument that is incredibly exotic. It's called the berimbau. And you might be able to see, it's very faint, but this is a berimbau leaning on the chair here. And you see he's in the circle, which is inside of the circle. And she invites me to come and play with her. And so I start doing a little juke and weave to the music, trying to mimic what she's doing. And then the first move I try to initiate is a somersault. And I just do like a roll on the ground and try to spring back up like a cat, and she shakes her head. No. She says, in Capoeira, you touch the floor generally with only your hands, your feet, and sometimes with your head. But you don't get your elbows, you don't get your knees, and you definitely don't want your clothes to get dirty. You always want to look nice and presentable. And a sign of a bad capoeirista is one who has a dirty butt or dust on their jeans. You always want to be impeccable at all times. And I thought, well, that's a difficult rule.
Can I poke in here and just say, we got shells on shells. Our fields are a layered onion of sorts. And just like you can have an emotional plague that distorts your vibe and dirties it up on the feeling level, dirty clothes, looking real, raggedy ass, that is the energy you're giving to the world too. So I'm not saying that it's not against the law to get dirty, play in the mud, roll around, but just generally we got to keep that in mind, that the face that we present to the world has everything to do with our choice of wardrobe as well, and how we maintain that particular shell of the field. And
yes, sir.
If we want to project confidence and self-love into the fractal, it helps to be real slick. Yes. And she even, I'm pretty sure she pointed out that traditionally, in Brazil, that the slaves, they worked 6 days a week, and that it was the 7th day was the only day that they got to practice capoeira. And that day was designated for church going. And so they would go to church and make their appearance and, observe those social norms. But then they didn't have time to go home and change and get, their capoeira clothes on. They did the capoeira in their church clothes. And that's another reason why you adhere to that tradition of staying clean and having purity of intention. And so after that, now I know that I can't just flop around on the ground and call it capoeira, that there's certain rules that I'm sticking to here. And so then she brings me back to the beginning again, and she goes into this maneuver that still to this day, after 20 some years of capoeira, I cannot even come close to the grace and the style and the cunning that she presented to me in that one moment. She went into an inverted handstand
She's looking me in my eyes the whole time, smiling like a goddess. And then she does the splits and still looking in my eyes. And then she spins into a double helicopter kick. And I get out of the way for the first one. And just when I stand up, there's another one coming. She does a double helicopter kick to my head while staring me in the eyes, spinning on her hands. And then I expect to hear her hit the ground when she comes out of it. I expect it to make an impact. Like a cat, she just rolls over the earth and comes standing again. And she was staring me in my eyes the whole time, smiling as beautiful as could be. And I was so in love.
Shakti,
buddy.
Man,
yeah, man.
That's something.
I was taken. I was utterly taken. And it was amazing because, like, I'm in love with the art that's coming through her and what she's expressing and the depth of the cultural sensitivity that she's conveying. But she was beautiful too. I was in love with her and everything that she stood for and understood. I wanted to know biblically and spiritually. You know what I mean?
Yo, aesthetics is the ground of philosophy, and it's lost. It is lost in this world right now. And it is actually super helpful to just follow beauty in everything. Like where the beauty at, you go that way. There's a reason why we have this innate sensor for beauty. And it's because that's where the flow at. The flower, the flower is beautiful.
That's exactly it. She was the flower and she bloomed in front of me, you know, it's with a smile like the Buddha, you know.
It's amazing what these bodies can do and what we can do in them. And maybe even more amazing than that is how far removed we are from that potential as a society. And man, there's only up to go from here. And that gives me a lot of excitement.
Yes. Yeah, so that was my path. She had opened a door that I could never back out of, and I've just spent 20 some years just pursuing that beauty, you know, that aesthetic of, you know, the being graceful, you know, being forgiving, being a good sport, and you know, there's a phrase in Capoeira, I am the student who teaches and I am the master who learns. And, you know, right there, that, you know, that maxim is enough to keep you locked in for life. But there's another rule that comes back to that, you know, the king's hands and being the healer. And one of those rules, a lot of people, when they see Capoeira, they say, you know, why don't you just knuckle up? And the answer is because culturally in, you know, in Brazilian and African and indigenous cultures, the hands they're designated for creation. And you want to keep them clean for the things that you're going to create. And it is the feet that are made for knocking stuff over and doing the dirty work.
Yeah, they touch the soil.
In the soil. Yeah.
That makes sense, man.
Yeah. So Capoeira it's very, the kicks are very elaborate and incredible. You know, the angling and the gaining of position in order to execute these very elaborate kicks. You'll never learn it all. Nobody could ever learn all of it, but it's very, it's artistic and it's captivating. And there it is again, that spell, that compulsion to move, to dance. You know, you get going, and other people, that's that sympathetic magic, you know, they connect with you and now they want to dance and they feel fulfilled when they obey that compulsion to move. So yeah, essentially the first spell I ever learned in that magic bookshop that my aunt opened up, that spell has actually taken hold in me. And now I live in that spell.
I can relate, man. Dancing is my jam. I got the coolest personal friends ever. And last night I was at a birthday party for our September friends that are born in this month, and out in the middle of the woods and on some farmland far away from the cities, we had a huge shipping container dance floor stage built, multi-leveled, all strung up with lights and decorations and a DJ platform. And we're all like doing our flow arts, flow toys, dancing. I couldn't even describe the variety of movement arts that were being expressed for no purpose other than nothing recorded, no money exchanged, not an event with a name or a title, just there to celebrate life and be in that moment of ecstatic, exuberant movement and enjoyment, so good. And I just know that not enough of the world is experiencing the magic of that, and how infectious, how viral in the positive sense of the word, that type of energy movement is, the Shakti that comes through when your electricity is in full flow. And man, I love it. So this was an unexpected journey to get into this level of talking about. I didn't know this background with you. I knew you were a martial artist, but this leads me to a question that I've been holding here for a second.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinion. And I also want to come back to Avengers questions in a second, but let's see where we get. I know time feels like it's going slow, but when I look at the clock, I'm like, "Ooh, we're moving." But I want to know how you see physical self-defense training relate to occult knowledge. Because, is there a connection between learning the signs and symbols to a form of self-defense? I've said my answer before, so I just want to get your answer here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a great question. Chance. I have also partaken in some very hands-on, physical and very spiritually involved training of self-defense in Colorado. I spent 16, 18 years in Colorado. And so when I got that patch, when I was a kid at the age of 12, I would read Black Belt magazine. And in Black Belt magazine, periodically there were articles on a form of training was called, at the time, it was called Bullet Man training. And the Bullet Man training is where a group of facilitators who are very accomplished in martial arts, they will put on a padded suit. It's called the padded assailant suit. And it's essentially football gear and lacrosse pads, but with even more padding on top of that. And so it's a football helmet with carpet pads and duct tape, until your helmet is about this big, and there's no room for movement for your head to experience injury. It's all padded up. You can still move your head a little bit, but you're like a big robot in a padded suit. And then you have a coach who will lead people through scenario-based training. And we go all the way from verbal conflict, and then we build it up slowly over the course of a few days. And then it goes into the full force, fighting for your life type of situations. And that is where the physical meets the spiritual. The mind and the matter are all thrown into this soup. And if you're in the right environment, a lot of healing, can be facilitated. And we would, in the end of the training, once we've kind of brought out the tiger out of these pussycats, and they have a sense of capability, at the end of the weekend, everybody has an opportunity to do what's called a custom scenario. And they would be able to essentially recreate a situation or a trauma that they've experienced. And they are literally rewiring themselves to relive what might have been a traumatic experience, but this time to do it the way they wish they had done it before, or even to make a covenant with themselves that this is how they will handle it if it ever happens again. And they are literally, they become very powerful manifestors. And the padded suit gives them that safe space, to bring out whatever the self-preservation instinct that a lot of people have not had cultivated in their life. And I have seen some profound works being done in that arena. Not myself, but my instructor, he was able to do some personal custom scenarios for people that are horrific to even talk about. I don't want to bring in details, but he was able to embody a shadow that was so dark and so morbid that, just talking about it is kind of brings down the vibe. But he did it in a healing capacity, and so my instructor, I was able to watch him put on a mask for other people to play the role of the worst, most despicable aspects of humanity, and give women and elderly people and even children the chance to see that and to react in a way that brings out the warrior, and people rise to the occasion right before your eyes. And, in one moment, I'm aghast to see my instructor saying these things and embodying these horrible nightmares. He's bringing them to life right in front of us. And then I see the woman who was once, she was a victim or a survivor when she came to the training, but she turned into a warrior and she conquered. And it really reinstills your faith in humanity to watch people accomplish their own dreams, what they never knew they were dreaming for. And it happens right there in front of your eyes. And so that's another level of, self-defense where it becomes spiritual, and part of that is being able to become somebody else's shadow that, that they need. And it's intense work. When I come home from those trainings, I have like the foulest mouth, and, some residue is still on me, and I have to go through purification to come back to just being kind and true. And it's a really intense process, but that gives me quite the perspective on what a mask can be used for.
I love it, man. I feel that way. I expressed this on Vibrant last week, but that all the distortion in our field is like a debugging process for self or source, where once we've experienced that distortion, we are now guarded against it, or we've patched up the vulnerabilities and the holes. And like, when I look at what's going on in the world right now, this will never happen again like this. I don't think, unless it was all slate wiped clean and we had to start from scratch. Because and the same process happens in the big corporate world. You got your giant databases that billion-dollar computer networks, and everything's running off of this, and financial infrastructure, and they hire hackers, or they put out a call and say, we'll pay $100,000 if you can breach our system and tell us how you did it. That's the exact same thing that God is doing with life all the time by bringing us what we experience as distortion and evil. And even though, that hacker might think, I'm a badass, I'm going to wreck this thing. In the end, their character, they're wearing a mask, and they will return to self or to God and realize, oh, this was just a role. And it's not really, I'm not the mask, no matter how far into it they get, how into it they are, how method acting. Right. But, yes. And another idea here is just like, when you toughen up, you strengthen the skin. The skin is the derma. and Dharma is the anagram for dream. So the tougher you are, the harder you dream, and the better you dream. It's so real.
Oh, Chance, I love you, man. You're freaking awesome.
Love you too, dude. I'm having so much fun.
I love that.
In this free hour, let's get back into a little bit of the Avengers movies, the tarot, because first of all, let's see how to frame this. Like, okay, to answer my own question earlier about self-defense and learning symbolism, I think that psychic self-defense is symbolic literacy, because the idea of resonance through sympathetic magic that is in play when we're dealing cards through these movies is that if you don't realize and recognize these inner archetypes that are being distortioned through the screen, the filter that you're seeing it through, then you don't understand how your sympathetic resonance is going to influence the fractal by accepting and believing in a poisoned or distorted worldview. But once you realize that this is just a play that you're watching and that the archetypes, you are in conversation with them, you influence them and they influence you back, you begin to take agency back away from the agents of the state, of the corrupted state. So when it comes to the movies, the Avengers movies, I kind of answered one of my opinions here, but what do you think the purpose is in Hollywood of encoding tarot into everything? I mean, even that movie we watched the other night with the spiders and fam on the telegrams, the golem, and how we were spotting tarot aspects in that movie. Why do you think that this is always encoded or so commonly encoded? Do you agree with my assessment on the sympathetic magic? Is there more that you could get into there?
Yes. I totally agree. The fundamentals of the self-defense that we teach, we call it the ABCs, and that's awareness, boundaries, and then C is choice, commitment, combat, control. There's a lot of C's. And
speaking of C's, I just want to also throw in, just to finish out like the direction I'm intending this flow to go, is that in these Avengers movies, for those who don't know, there is encoding. There is a code relating to the corona, the sun virus, right? And the idea of don't take the shot is in there. I mean, it's right there in your face. And warning of the mass extinction event, the snapping of our fingers metaphorically, and in a few years, maybe there's only half of us here, is that becoming possible because it was inserted into the group mind through these widely popular films that supposedly, like the final Avengers movie, was the biggest grossing of all time. And it was gross.
Yeah. I now call him and Thanos Fauci.
I laughed at that.
Yes.
I cough.
It's a weed. Go ahead.
I cough. Fauci backwards.
You got it. So, and that is kind of horrifying, but what it seems to indicate is that, those who are spiritually aware enough to read the signs and symbols, we're getting the disclaimer, and we are being informed of what not to agree with, what not to go along with, what not to believe, and so for those of us who can see through the code of what's being put into plain sight, and I know this sounds, it's kind of morbid, but we're being initiated, and because we've been initiated, because we're awake enough to see what these signs and symbols mean, then we'll make decisions based on that, our intuition, and therefore we'll make it through to the next phase of this process. And people who don't get the signs and symbols, who aren't reading the fine print, they're going to march right into oblivion.
The threshing.
The threshing.
Tribulation means threshing, separation of wheat from chaff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is kind of what I think the Avengers symbols have been telling us, is that, there is an alchemical process at play, and there will be a dividing, a separating. And then, and that is ultimately what happens at the end, is there's a conflagration where they bring that which has been separated, it returns into this grand mixing. And if you think about it, that final scene where Doctor Strange and the 50% of the population return, that is it's a magical blending of three forces. There's at first it's the good guys and those who did not get disappeared. And then the portals open up and there's that third component, and that's that alchemical, triune, hermetic procedure. All the signs and symbols are kind of plain and obvious to those who know what they're seeing and know how to stay aware and informed, and thereby that defines our concept of boundaries. And when it comes time to make a choice, our choices will be more informed than the people who didn't read the terms of the agreement. And so, yeah, you're right, man. The Avengers was definitely giving us, the blueprint of the things that are yet to come and that have come to pass already. And it just, it has infinite value. The Winter Soldier, he's got the metal arm, and now we have people with magnets on their arm, and if that's just a coincidence to you, then, maybe you're going to get turned into ashes and disappear for 5 years until the end game.
What's far out about that too is just that character goes back so much further than right now. And I know you've done conversations on Marvel and Jack Parsons and all that, and we don't have time in hour one to go deeper. And geez, there's so little of my notes on your material that we've even touched here. It's awesome. You're like the perfect guest, dude. That's why I'm so excited about it. It's just like you really got the knowledge and the flow in proportions that will inspire everybody to be like, yeah. So anyway, speaking of flow, if you got it on deck, because you mentioned it, but I forgot to ask before we got on the air, if you got it ready or can recite and you want to throw out some poetry, because I know that you are not just prosaic, but you're poetic. And that's part of that alchemical marriage that's required for initiatory information to be properly received. You can't just read that Bible as a historical narrative. You need to understand the multi-layered symbolism. And in hour two, I want to discuss this idea of binary versus inclusive, yes and versus true false, but we'll get there. So anyway, do you got anything to round us out on some poetry? Because I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I have I guess I'll do two pieces. One is kind of quick, and this piece is it's called Possessed States, and I mean that title in every possible sense of its meaning. But this is essentially a synopsis of what happens when a person goes into court, and how that ritual and that attempt at instilling remedy, how it is actually it's a spell. It's magical, and people, they want to stay in that materialistic paradigm. But what I want to do is put it into a strictly spiritual context, And it does have a, this is kind of calling out pharmakia and dark arts for what it really is. Possessed states. Egregious, antiquated, spellbound egregores perch upon golden branches, wearing black, billowing mantles to summon long dead, increasingly begrudging fiat presidents. Hexenhammer gavel signals a commencement of cryptolingual implied consent, notwithstanding in common sense, trust, equity, or law. Upon high-staged jurisprudence, wigless actors practice never perfecting artful invocations. Thereby, wide-sleeved clerics conjure cursed minds to meet as necromanicaled personhoods, to swear in the name of the unknowable, believing beyond preconceived shadows of doubt. High mastery of the truncated jurisdiction teems with hubristic Article 3, black-robed overreach, interning rights of use beneath 9 dark tenths ownership, reconstituting deep states of possession. Underdressed for undue duress and onerously capitulating quite outside of womb or good counsel. Man's echo of a vestige that once stood over blood-wet ink on baby feet now spirals original light into darkened two-dimensional oath sigils. Pinprick spears command him, thus barred into usury, to assume a throne of uneven, lesser stature. He appears under occult order of ecclesiastic seal in time and place by the vested power of a name, therein activating a maniacal exchange of talismanic magics.
Dude, we should have started with that and just went line by line and been like, okay, let's help everyone grasp, because I mean, that is jam-packed. Not only is the wordplay pleasant, but the layers of meaning, that is one potent onion right there.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. A lot of cooking went into that recipe right there.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah.
You don't get that anywhere else, people. This is a special moment. I want everyone to know. This is Slick Dissident is hitting the stage and things aren't going to be the same. Man's got it. Love this. Yeah, so how about we save another poem for maybe to finish out hour 2. Can't make any promises on where we're going to go, everybody, in hour 2. I've got a lot of ideas, but let's just trust us. If after what you just heard, we did a lot of Gabe's backstory and some really interesting things in the realm of martial arts and self-defense, physical and psychic. But I'm thinking hour 2 is where we're going to really crack into some code breaking. And that's definitely Homeboy's specialty. So before we do that, do you want to give out any kind of contact information for people in this hour, or do you want to reserve that for the paywall, or not at all? Is there any way that you would prefer people to maybe communicate with you if they're interested, or would you rather they just come into your YouTube channel, leave some comments, and you'll catch them there?
Yeah, I'm thinking through the YouTube channel is probably the best. At this point, I'm small enough that
I'll just say my problem is YouTube doesn't let people comment on my videos anymore.
Yeah,
it acts like there's a glitch and they can't leave a comment. It is super annoying.
Yep, I have seen that. And to some degree, I do a lot of work around with my language, and I try to imply and I leave it to the listener to kind of fill in the blank, so that the AI doesn't catch on to what we're really getting at. But at this point, I'm small enough that almost every comment I get a chance to give, personal attention. And if anybody wants to, spark up a conversation, I'm more than happy, to give out my email address and take it to the next level with anybody who's looking for it. So, yeah,
so
you can
they
find
must
me
seek to receive, and that makes total sense. But I will say, I think we got people watching, not algorithms in our circle, in my opinion, because it is too much. But cool. Slick Dissident on YouTube. Anything else you got for the first hour, peeps?
Thank you for coming and, giving both of us a chance and, growing this circle, making this movement come to life. We are the resistance, and there's only one direction we're going, and that's forward, together, closer, and with no sense of distance whatsoever, regardless of the fact that we're across the country. We are coming together, and social distance is a joke. It's a joke, and we're just going to laugh in the face of this thing until it goes to rest. And we will get the last laugh. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then we'll keep laughing after that too. Laughter is the medicine. All right. I'm feeling it. Okay, we'll get on over to the exclusive Patreon and Rockfin side of this chat. You guys catch us there. You won't regret it. Gabriel, my man, thank you so much. Unreal how cool this was.
Much love, everyone.
Holy cow, people. Slick Dissident, Gabriel, bringing the thunder like no other. And of course, we recorded that conversation on 9/19, that 19, that magical alchemical marriage energy. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize it was the 19th when we went in, but I'm not speechless about it. I've got a lot to say, and we'll get there, but the energy of that is just jaw-dropping, especially in the second hour. Please, I really want to see a big bump in subs for Slick Dissident on YouTube. Just look up that phrase on YouTube or go to my show notes for a link to that. I want to see those numbers go up. I want InnerVerse fam to make an impact, not just on, Gabe's confidence levels, because he's doing a great thing. He's doing a great job, but also let's absorb what he's got. Maybe some of the information is repeat for some of us who have heard it from other places or people, but let's take it and put our own spin on it and bring our uniqueness to it. And, let's make the few of us that can go there. And because I realize, what we do here is oftentimes not for everybody, but what we can do is synthesize these depths and bring the wisdom and bring the gems and the jewels to the people. And we can initiate people onto the path to truth, not bogus initiations into collectivist dogmas that are antithetical distortions. Anyway, Gabriel's awesome, unreal. Definitely lives up to that namesake, Gabriel, man of God, what it means there. So, first of all, that stuff on martial arts at the beginning, the Brazilian dance fighting thing, that you would not believe how much that actually ends up connecting in hour two. And I wanted to bring up in that part of the conversation, I was having trouble not interrupting more because there's so much popping into my head. And I think the flow is good. But martial arts proves energy. It proves ki or chi or vital life force energy. How else can somebody break a brick with their head when somebody else would break their head on the brick? Riddle me this. It's evident to me that, attention, your spiritual currency is an energetic force that can move things, can break barriers, can, penetrate impediments. And penetration through these artificial walls is what the spirit of rebellion and resistance is about. It's not just about self-defense and standing our ground. It's about going where we're not supposed to go, where we're not allowed to go. Not in a perverse sense, but in a completion sense, in a birthing sense. We need this synthesis to get out of the binary, true, false, fake cybernetic world, right? So anyway, plus extension, you guys probably know the drill, but you can catch the second hour where we actually went an hour and 15. We went over in the plus version. You can catch that on Rockfin and on Patreon. Links in both. Patreon costs you $5 a month, and you get the whole archive of everything I've ever done. Please just stop and think about what a deal that is. And even if all you got is a month of in you, sub up. It's only $5. I would like the reciprocal energy exchange. It helps me help you with this type of content to keep you content on your quest for whatever it is that you get out of this type of thing. I know what I get out of it, and it's everything. So patreon.com/InnerVerse, Rockfin, ROKFIN.com/InnerVerse. Those are the channels. Links in the show notes. Rockfin is $10 a month, but you get access to all the other premium channels on Rockfin. Huge deal, huge value, even better than the Patreon deal. So what did we talk about? We did get into the idea of binary versus inclusive, getting out of that yes or no, that true or false, and more into a yes and. I won't be able to talk about, I didn't quite note down everything that we discussed in hour 2, but dude, it did get lit. We discussed MK Ultra, the longer history of MK Ultra, and the art born out of suffering versus out of flow and joy. A lot of talk on castration, the castrati class, the keys to the Mickey Mouse Club, and the men with fire, the pirates, that eye above the pyramid. We decoded the officers, the off-icers. We looked at the eunuchs of the pharaoh, the magicians of the pharaoh, our uniqueness, and how to become a pharaoh of peepholes instead of persons. And so there's more than that, but the most mind-blowing aspect, I think, was when Gabe and I realized that we had almost shared, and maybe like literally, these things. The beauty of magic is there's always room for doubt, but if you do doubt, then you break the spell. So we had, I guess, a shared telepathic dream experience that maybe some of the other people that we discussed that were part of these dreams also had in some degree. But man, that dream stuff that we discussed, that we both had these dreams last night, it'll blow your mind. It is worth the price of admission just for that. Some things that we didn't get into, though, that I would like to in the future. Well, a lot. Just everything on his channel. I'll just leave it there. We did kind of tease talking about Darwinian evolutionary theory and how to kick that in the balls. We'll get back to that in a future conversation. It has to do with catastrophism. And like the quick answer is that if you recognize catastrophism as part of the cycles of the development of this realm, then you would have to be able to then dismiss Darwinian linear evolution, because the supposed millions and billions of years of amoeba to human being and that whole progression would be constantly interrupted and jeopardized by these catastrophes. And there's more to it than that, but we'll get back to that in future talk with Gabriel. Another thing that we did hint at was that so many of on the subject of castration, so many of the maxims that we follow or that we hear have been themselves castrated. They've been cut. In the cut is not a kind cut. One that I find really interesting that I didn't realize is that we often hear and we quote and we share that the phrase "know thyself" is put above the doorways of the oracle at Delphi in the Greek mystery school tradition of the ancient world. And now I haven't vetted this, but it makes sense to me. And I think I've even heard it before, but Gabe says in his videos, it's actually know thyself in thy proper proportions. And that's it. That's what learning the mystery of the tarot will do, is help you understand the proportions of the arc, and when the arc of the sky vault, the sky clock. And the more that you connect with that arc and recognize that arc within yourself, the stronger your bioelectric field can arc outwards and become an archive of truth, knowledge, wisdom, and vital life force energy, which is exactly what we require to stay in flow and to perpetuate life eternally. We have to keep that flow. The meaning of life is life. And that's, in my opinion, is all like, it's a simple, keep it simple, stupid. The meaning of life is life. Existence exists. Let's keep doing it. Let's not transmute ourselves into something dead and non-existent. Let's not pull the plug. Let's not return to the void. I like it here. I like what we're doing. Actually, I love it. And big lessons in my life lately, major lessons, particularly that no matter how difficult it might seem or how tempting it might be to not, even when boundaries are required or when tough situations are at hand, find the most love-filled answer. I've been off track on that a while. You know, I've known this before. There's no pride. There's no righteousness that is more satisfying or more healing than love. And I don't care how hippy-dippy it sounds. I mean, sometimes love is a boundary, a strong boundary. It's helpful for both people, but that doesn't mean that we reject any part of our life or people or anything completely and abandon them out into the cold, even if they're hard, you know, even if they're the most hard-hearted individual, if they're the orange man bad or whatever. Be thankful. Be thankful they exist. Orange Man Bad, he's done a lot to usher in Judgment Day. But Judgment Day, the apocalypse, is the lifting of the veil. All of your so-called enemies are here to reveal your weaknesses to you so that you can patch up the holes in your field and be all the stronger. And instead of whining about that and complaining and hating and dividing and living in fear, well, where if it just wasn't that way, then everything would be fine. And it's a binary true false. Accept it. Yes, this exists. This difficult energy exists. And I'm going to transmute it because I can and you can. I hope you follow me. So here's the thing. Usually before I record an outro, I've already selected a song that will be the outro song. I forgot to do that. I jumped straight from talking to Slick into recording this outro. If you want to know the song that I'm about to play, please check the show notes for that. And I will put it in the video. It'll label the song during the outro music. It's one of my favorite parts of doing InnerVerse is sharing music with you people. I like music a lot. So, and I want people to find new music. I think that's part of expanding, is to get out of the rut of listening to the same thing all the time, or not listening to anything with flow or with beauty. Follow what's beautiful, what's good, true, and beautiful, as Lindsay over at Rogue Waste says. And we'll pick something good, true, and beautiful to play in the outro. I want to also plug, I'm glad that I just thought of her, because I needed to remember to plug One Day of Brightness, which is coming up on the 26th of September, where me, Lindsay, Michael Wan, Catherine O'Shea will be providing our services, our healing gifts, our knowledge, our wisdom, our connection with everyone that attends. And I think there's not a lot of spots left. I mean, maybe by the time you hear this, there aren't any, but I would love anyone there that wants to be part of it. As I've been repeating elsewhere, for the low price of admission of like $60, you're getting access to work from all of us at once throughout the day, and a recording of it if you can't make it through the whole day for whatever reason. And any one of us in a one-on-one session would be much more expensive than that. So, speaking of which, my contribution to the One Day of Brightness is a sound healing, a group sound healing. And I tell you what, my insecurity or lack of confidence in the power of the modality is just vaporized lately. Some of the recent sessions I've done with people, they really bring it all together for me and help me see what is possible. It's not my power. I mean, I have my spin on how I do it. My uniqueness is an art, it's a craft. It's part of what makes it effective. But the fact is, you can heal. You can heal a lot. You can heal anything. And when you put in the investment, the energetic investment with somebody that's authentically interested in helping you connect to that healing energy, and even has a modality that operates as a scaffolding to which we can climb to that Helios energy, catch up with Sundog, there's just no telling what's possible. You're really only limited by your imagination and what you accept is possible, especially with healing on the energy level. So let's do it. Hit me up. I still need to set it up on my website where it's obvious that I do sound healing sessions, and remotely works. I won't go on about it, but it works really well remotely. Trust me. Promise you it does. When I do set up that section of my website someday, I will include testimonials on that, and that'll help maybe give you confidence that it's worth it. But right now, it's actually less expensive than it will be in the future to work with me, because I still am developing. I still feel good about doing a lower price than I'll do later, because I want to get more clients. Later, I'll need to tone it down and have tone it down. See what I did there? I need to tone it down and have fewer clients just to be able to fit it all in. And I know that's coming. But right now, I'm just really interested in working with people and helping balance their biofields, helping them feel the flow and restore, get rid of the blockages, change. We're all here to change. We're not here to stay the same. We're not here to be in pain. We're here to play. I'm feeling that. It's so good. Man, the love is strong right now. Hope you guys are into it. So if you missed out on hour 2 with me and Slick, please go there. Worth it. Worth the sub just for this one episode, not to mention all the other great things in the archive. Honestly, he brought out some really good stuff in me as a host. I love that. The reflection, the energy of that heroic, masculine, fiery reflection was just really good. And I could go on, but I won't. I'll wrap it up here. Join us on Telegram. Links for that in the show notes. We'd love that. Don't forget, we got Vibrant now. I have a whole new show. I've been, talking it up. I'll probably have to mention it every week because I could just let you know what happened the previous week. But last week's Vibrant, we talked to Johnny Larson, and of course, a lot of people in the live chat and the community made their contributions and their call-ins. On Vibrant, it's anything goes. We have fun. I laughed so much with Johnny. Like, we need that cathartic laughter. No evil can stand in the face of authentic laughter and joy. It just flees the scene. It's gone. It's over. It's off. And we're on. And we had a blast with Johnny. He's a great artist. He's a cool hip-hop dude. Super cool. Humble. Probably too humble, but it works. That's his personality. Lindsay is his life partner, Lady Love, Lindsay from Rogue Ways. So she was in there calling in as well. She joined us for a bit of it, and we just had such a good time. And I think that's major missing from conspirituality, if that's what this is. If I had to label it, I kind of like that label. I'll go with it. Definitely don't feel like a conspiracy show per se. And so the whole point of Vibrant is to just be free, vibe, rant, laugh, enjoy it, bring people in that want to contribute something to the convo that otherwise maybe feel invisible, or like they don't have a way to reach the world, or they don't have the time or the means or quite the drive or the desire to make their own channel. But this is our thing. Vibrant is our thing, and you can join it and be a part of it, especially where it's at now. There's plenty of room for you guys to call in, drop us a line. All of that really works through Telegram. So if you're not using it, I hope you will. It's a lot of fun. We have great conversations over there. And there's going to be much more to come next week's Vibrant on Wednesday of this week, which will just be a couple days after this episode publishes on the 22nd. Another powerful number, 922. We'll be joined by Matt Landman, the amazing activist and filmmaker, and many times on this show before. But we're going to hang out with Matt, have some fun with him, maybe see if I can get some of his crazier life stories out of him just for the entertainment value. So that's what we're doing. There's a lot going on, just expanding in all directions. We will have Slick Dissident back soon. I am really into what he's doing. I'm all in. And Like I said about the music that you're about to hear now, after I went on several more minutes, I'll link that in the show notes too. All the links in the show notes. Slick's channel, One Day of Brightness. It'll all be there. Get in those show notes. Go to my website, InnerVersePodcast.com. That's where you can find all the further connections to further reading material, supplementary info. And we'll call it for now. If you do want more Slick, Weaving Spiders Welcome. He's been on there a lot too. That's another great YouTube channel. I will keep plugging them because they are awesome. Mind-blowing stuff. And we're done. Wrapping it up. Always a blast to be in this flow, in this space together. And, I'm dreaming about all of us coming together. And it's happening. It's really beautiful. And I'll catch you guys soon. Much love. Bye-bye.
Get funky. Get funky.